Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This is the Finch Show, and I'm James Finch. My guest on the podcast this time is a man who goes by the name of Frankly Built. That's on Instagram, that's on YouTube, that is on Twitter, that's on Facebook, Discord. And if you're not familiar with him, then you're doing yourself a disservice. This guy is an absolute master in anything 3D printed, especially when it comes to like science fiction, fantasy props and armors and helmets and everything like that. I found his channel a little bit ago. It is absolutely fascinating the work that he's able to do. And he's a really awesome guy on top of it. If you're not into the 3D printing world, but you have any kind of interest or even just casual, I guess, what would you say, intrigue in it, I would definitely go look him up. When you go to his YouTube channel, he has tons of tutorial videos, and it's everything from initially getting into the hobby, getting started up, managing a 3D printer, and everything all the way up to finishing and producing pieces that look absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it. But without further ado, here is Frank.
Got it.
Okay, cool. I'm here with Frank. Frank, I got it. I firmly believe every single, when you go through like sci-fi fantasy, like every hero, every villain has an origin story. But I firmly believe that every nerd has an origin story. And I'm not even talking about specifically 3D printing yet. But for you as a nerd and someone who's into Marvel and Dragon Ball Z and all this stuff, can you remember a time when that all started for you?
Yikes. Starting off hot. I guess as far back as it goes on when I really started to go down the path of the weeb, I just remember Toonami. I remember Cartoon Network, Toonami, coming home from school, and it would be not Rurouni Kenshin. It was I can't remember the animation name, but it was on the same time as Gundam and Dragon Ball Z. Ronin Warriors, that was it. It was Ronin Warriors and a little bit of Robotech, and it was Toonami that really started to like, that was it. It was the 90s. It was I think 6:30, it was like 5 or 6 was like Sailor Moon, and I'd be like, nah, I'm not watching that. And then like Dragon Ball Z would come on afterwards,
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was wow, these are cartoons, but like they're getting the crap beat out of them. What is happening? Oh no, he's dying. I don't know. Like, so it was just so different than the Nickelodeons and the Disney shows, right? And that was the start of it. That was definitely like I like this.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah, I remember being at that point, just like absolutely riveted watching the Cell Saga on Dragon Ball Z. And
there was never better hype, I think, for any show ever, because there were no spoilers. There wasn't like you were going to be scrolling TikTok and then you were going to see that Gohan was blasting Cell away. You weren't. It was you had to get home and watch it, and you were waiting, and then the suspense, and that was. I don't think you'll ever get something like that again, just in those big final battles, because of the internet, because of social media. Like,
right.
It's hard. You'd have to disconnect yourself, but
totally.
We're talking about not, all right, we're waiting for this big movie to premiere, go see it. We're talking like, weeks and months of a buildup that just, you were in it,
Yeah. And and that was even like before DVR and the social media thing. Like, you're on
God forbid you missed it.
Right.
If you missed it. Oh
like
no.
It drives me nuts when it's like the season finale of like Mandalorian or Hawkeye or something like that. And like a couple days have gone by and I haven't seen it. And I'm doing my best to avoid spoilers, but still memes and stuff come through your feed and you're like, man.
That's it.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to go see, No Way Home, like the night it premiered. Like, we went, I'm like, no, we're seeing it Thursday night. I'm not waiting until Friday after work. It's going to get spoiled. I'm not doing it. And, yeah.
That movie was so good.
It was fun.
It was so good. It was one of those. It was one of those movies that I wish I could erase it from my brain and watch it again.
Watch it again.
Yeah.
I get that. I totally I like that. I think it's been out long enough, and now Sony's marketing with Andrew and Tony, which is good. So it's like, hey, they're in the movie. I like that they did the nice reveal for Andrew in new costume coming out. Oh my God, who's that big reveal? And then they're like, the second we show Andrew on screen, everyone's gonna know Toby's on screen. So they just had Toby just walk through the portal, like, oh yeah, I'm here too.
Yeah.
Like they didn't, they're like, cat's out of the bag, might as well let them all out.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
he literally just stepped. Yeah, he just was like walked in the frame. Oh, I'm here too.
Yeah. Didn't even need to be in uniform. Just hey.
No, it's like, yeah, we get it. They're both here. We weren't gonna get one and nothing. There would have been riots in the street if like only Andrew came back and they're like, what do you mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, gosh, I enjoyed it so much. It's always interesting the way generational plays into these things. My eldest son is 18, and so when he was a kid, it was the Tobey Maguire ones, and then when he got to be into like his early teens, it was the Andrew Garfield ones, and now for him it was almost like his whole life of Spider-Man like coming together.
It was all
on
of
the
it.
big screen.
It was all. Mine was. I grew up with Tobey, first Spider-Man movie, second Spider-Man, one of the best freaking superhero movies ever, and then you got Andrew, and you're like, this is going somewhere, and then Spider-Man 2 came out, and you're like, this didn't go anywhere.
Right.
Oof. They wrote Jamie Foxx into a bad place.
Yeah, poor guy. I felt so bad about that second Amazing Spider-Man movie because I felt like it had so much potential, and even that whole franchise could have continued on.
It was the best Spider-Man movie, but it was also the worst Spider-Man movie. In terms of Spider-Man on screen, that was it. We'll never, out of all, what is it, 4, 3, now it's 8 Spider-Man movie, and then the Spider-Verse, and then all the cameos in the Avengers movies, that was still like the best on-screen Spider-Man we've ever seen. His mannerisms, his attitude, that was it. Andrew nailed that. Plot and story-wise.
Yeah. And I always felt bad because Andrew Garfield, I've been a long time Andrew Garfield defender, and I'm glad that he's kind of gotten some new love out of this. But he said, like, I think a year after that movie came out, that he loved, when he first read the script, he absolutely loved the script to that movie. The problem is like midway through productions, all the studios got involved and needed to make all these changes, and then it felt like the storyline got all jumbled, and
that's how it goes.
Yeah, unfortunately. So anyway, as we move on to the important stuff here. So I got to ask, obviously, being into the 3D printing world, do you remember, kind of like the last question, do you remember a point in time where that started for you, where you're like, you know what, I might be interested in this 3D printing thing, let me take a look into it? Or was it just,
absolutely.
Yeah,
it was 2.5 years ago. I remember it vividly. It wasn't that long ago. I didn't even know 3D printing was really a thing. Like, you hear about it, and it would always be about either 3D printing pew parts, don't want to say the G word, I don't know, or medical advancements. I think up until that point, the coolest thing I think I heard about 3D printing was a Galapagos they're extinct. Some big tortoise had part of its shell destroyed, and they scanned it and 3D printed a negative, like a recast of the shell, and fixed this turtle's shell. And like, I was like, that's cool. Like, that's really sweet. Never gave thought of it though. And I had finally seen Avengers Endgame after being a lifelong nerd, and I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then I don't know, just started to dive into like more of cosplay and stuff. I'd been to Comic-Cons, like I've been to like 2 or 3 of them, but it was always for more like the anime nerd side of it. It was going for Gundam and Dragon Ball Z, and getting to meet Sean Schemmel or something like that, voice actors. But then I'm like, I want an Iron Man suit. Like, that was it. I was like, I have an okay job. I'm in an okay spot in my life. How do I make an Iron Man suit? Like, it was just for that. That's why I started. It was just the suit. And I did the research, and everything kept coming back with like 3D printing. Like, you can 3D print now. And the printer was like $500. Talked to my wife, like, hey, can we budget for this? Is this okay? Let's, should I wait longer? And we were like, no, we can do this now. Got it, and that was July 2019, and now we're here.
Does she regret saying, yeah, we can do that 2.5 years later?
Sure, I don't think she'd ever tell me. She was skeptical about it first because she didn't, I didn't know what I was doing, and she was just like, yeah, sure. I used to bounce through a lot of hobbies, and she was probably just like, another flavor of the week, cool, awesome. And then the suit started to actually come together and be printed, and it was like a real thing. And I could slowly start winning her over, and she was just like, this is actually pretty cool. Like, I know. So I'm doing it. It is pretty cool. This is sweet. And it was fun. It was fun.
That is awesome. And there it is behind you in all its glory. I
Yes.
absolutely love that thing. Um, and
Focus.
yeah. Did you, and I'm sure you went through the trials and tribulations that every new 3D printer goes through of constantly being frustrated and angry and not understanding why things aren't doing what it is you wanted to do. Because I feel like
Oh, whoa. I mean, no, no, this all went I'm the best. This was flawless. First shot, it came out shiny. My printer's never broke. Why would you even think that? Never had a single problem.
that's and I'm sure you've seen it, and for what it is that you do and the social media presence that you have, I'm sure you just get like inundated daily with all kinds of why is this happening, why is this happening, why did this happen. It can be, yeah, if I've learned one thing, it's an extremely, yeah, it's an extremely honest hobby. Like it tells
You
you
have
when something's wrong immediately, you
it,
know.
it is. It does. It really does. I literally have just from today. I have 4 different chains in Instagram of just helping someone troubleshoot their printer, or just like, hey, I'm having this problem. Hey, this filament's not sticking. Hey, what do you recommend? It's every day. But it's like you said, it tells you what's wrong, and a lot of people don't want to accept or admit that, or um they have a problem. They want someone to answer it for them. They don't want they don't want to get the answer or learn the answer. They want, why isn't my print sticking? Help. But well, let's do some research. Like, unfortunately, some people, I think, more often think that the private DM option on some people's profiles is also a help feature. It's not, but so like research. Like if you've had this problem, chances are somebody else has probably had this problem and talked in expanse about it, which is nice. With the power of the internet. Yeah, Google goes a long way, but but a lot of people just want the quick answer, which is fine, which is totally, sometimes I want that. But that's why I'm always an advocate of understanding your machine, understanding like, oh, I bought a 3D printer, it doesn't work. Or what doesn't work about it? Well, it just doesn't work. Well, does it turn on? Well, yeah, it turns on. Okay, so that works. So you start peeling back those layers, and when you get into the bottom line of it, there's only like 3 things, maybe 2 main systems to a 3D printer: the parts that move and the parts that heat and push out the plastic. Those 2 work in unison. But if the printer's not moving, well, that means it's that one system that's not working. But if the printer moves just fine and it's not coming out of the knot, it's only one problem. You just need to figure out where in that line the problem is. They're very simple machines, very simple. Just people get scared because big moving metal parts. I don't want to break it. It's
right. Well, I started off that way, and I was frustrated for a long time. My adventure began that was a year ago at Christmas. My wife and I just mentioned about, hey, I think 3D printing stuff is kind of cool, but didn't know anything about it. My wife got me one for Christmas without me knowing. It was a Flash Forge, I think Adventure 3 or something.
Yeah, a lot of people start on that one.
Yep. It was a good starter one. It was really, really great. But idiot me, I'm thinking to myself, it's like an appliance you buy. You plug it in, you upload a code, it comes out perfect.
Exactly.
It does what it's supposed to do.
It's not a microwave. It's not. It costs as much as a microwave. It's not a microwave. It's not a power drill. It's not a drill press or a table saw. It's a tool, but assembly required.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you learn, you end up learning so much about it through those frustrations, and I think anybody 3D printed anything knows the feeling of setting up like a 17-19 hour print, and everything looks great, and you come back 12 hours later to check on it, and you've got a disaster on the build plate. Spaghetti
surprise spaghetti dinner. I had a kind of a funny idea for either a TikTok or just either like an Instagram post or something, but it was like, leaving the room, coming out, and hey, I start a print, cool, leave, come back, and then the next day I come in, open the door, and it's like a sign. It's like, surprise Italian spaghetti dinner, and I was going to be like with a serving platter, like, you ordered the spaghetti, And it's heartbreaking. It sucks. Yeah. You want it just in between SLA printing, resin printing, and FDM printing. You want it to fail on the first layer while you're there, but you want it to fail on the last layer if you're not, or it's. But that is probably the biggest reason why I always advocate for people to get something like an Ender 3, a Voxel Lab Aquila, get the kind of janky, cheaper printer and learn, because I'll have people who have had nothing but Prusa's they've had a Prusa Mark III for the past year. It's been perfect and flawless. And then they expand to a second printer. They grab a Creality, they grab a Sovol, they get one of these more hobby level printers that are much bigger, and then they run into one problem and it's suddenly, oh, Creality sucks. This printer's trash. It's like, just because you've been driving the Ferrari this whole time and now you have a Honda with a flat tire doesn't mean the Honda's bad. You just need to learn how to fix it. It's different. Yes, it's cheaper, but it's bigger, or it's, it has a different purpose to it.
Right.
Where I'll have people who have had Ender 3s for the past year, gone through all the issues that you might run into, and they can help people with Prusa's troubleshoot their, first layer problems, their under extrusion problems. It's different. It's a very different thing to get into. And that's usually my best way of gauging if somebody, because I'll have people on my TikTok, anytime I recommend an Ender 3, there's always at least one person who's like, stop recommending this Chinese crap. It's like, and that's how I know you're bad at this. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know you have no idea what you're doing, but continue
right.
Yeah. Yikes.
Well,
they're everywhere. That's fine.
You are so right. That fly, I've since upgraded to a Sovol here, which is great. And I've got a CR10 Max that I just got. I'm not going to get into it because I got an issue with it. I just got out of the box, just put it together. I'm emailing back and forth Creality right now. I'm not going to get into that.
Oh no.
But learning, like, I got to admit, for as many problems as that FlashForge gave me, I am so thankful, because I learned so much about the way the printer, just like you were saying, the way the printer works. Like, you learn all these little maintenance tips and upkeep tips and ways to do it. And it was, I ended up really, really happy. I only use it for small stuff anymore because it's got such a small build plate on it.
It does. The 83, tiny, but it's a little workhorse. They get it.
Right. And I'm going to give people who are watching this, because I have a lot of listeners who aren't into the 3D world, is I have, like, for example, this here, this was printed on the Adventure, the FlashForge. And this is the Pillar of Autumn from the Halo games. And I actually had to build this in 3 sections, like 3 different parts, and then fuse it all together. But that's the size of the build plate that you're dealing with on one of those. But as you get higher, obviously, when you have like an Ender 3 or something like the CR10 Max, which is just like, you can build a barn on that thing. I swear to God, it's so massive.
The Max is so big, I printed my whole suit in one shot. for everybody, for listeners only. I'm so kidding.
Right. Somebody be like, they're looking up one right now. They're like, I can spend $1,000 on this.
Where do I find this?
Right. It'll print in 3 hours and it'll be flawless and painted and everything right off the bat. But it doesn't surprise me to get it, because the quick answer is 100% it. Because that was the one thing that would drive me nuts, is you'd have a problem, you didn't know what was wrong, you'd go on Google, 15 people give you 15 different answers. And I'd start.
Are you telling me that the subreddit for 3D printing is a bad place?
No, it's so much information you don't know how to get a handle.
It's actually the worst 3D printing forum I've ever seen. I'll take any Facebook group, Facebook group over the Reddit 3D printing community. Mm-hmm. And if you took offense to that, you're probably part of the problem. So avoid that place.
Shout out to Reddit. Well, that was the frustrating thing, because you'd sit there, you'd have 15 people who say, well, this is what's wrong. I'd write down all 15 of those things, Google how to fix all those problems, and I'd get to about number 7 or 8 and realize that's what the problem was.
Hey, you're lucky. You made it. You didn't make it to that problem 15.
Right.
The biggest problem in the community, and I will say this, is old dogs. And I don't mean necessarily like an old man who's sitting there with a printer. I mean just the people who have been doing it for 5+ years. And that's not that long to be doing a hobby. That's not that. If I was like, oh, I've been a car guy for 5 years, some crusty mechanic would be like, I've been building cars for 60 years. Shut up. Mm-hmm. but what happens is the printing's in such a quantum leap right now. The new printer that's coming out today is, I mean, so much better than that printer from 2, 3 years ago. Those giant Ultimakers that are thousands of dollars that my Ender can outperform now, but it's a fraction of the price. Or worse, the people who started and they built their first printer. They built the Anet A8s. They built I had to source all these parts and get them cut out the acrylic and do this and build it and then print more parts to make like those people, because they understand the printer better than I probably ever will. However, then people like you get a printer, and yeah, the newer people get the printers. They have a problem with the printer, and when the vets are trying to help them troubleshoot, which they're just trying to help, they always mostly usually are, they assume you've already done all the basic stuff, because they would have never posted having a problem about their printer if they hadn't already checked if their bed was level, if they hadn't already run a temperature tower, if they hadn't already done a PID tune. So they're assuming you did all of this already. So a lot of times when you post, they're good at they're subject matter experts maybe, but they're not good at that, dialing it back to like layman's terms. Like if I was brand new, what would I have forgotten? Not, oh, I've been doing this for 5 years. Clearly I would have done all this stuff. I don't know why my printer, is acting up. So it's hard for them to bridge that gap sometimes. And you'll get that rabbit hole troubleshooting where you're like, well, did you do a PID tune? Did you flash your firmware? Did you check? It's like, bro, clean your bed. clean the damn bed, level it. Did you switch the 220 volt thing inside to 120? Like, did you plug it in right? Like, it's little stuff like that they're beyond those mistakes. Just right. They've been doing it for too long.
It's kind of like how we always make fun of the IT guys for the very first thing they ask is it plugged in and turned on? And
you know how much that happens?
Yeah, I can imagine.
I've had plenty of friends who work IT who have worked even at Best Buy, which is sometimes in the IT world looked at like, the Dollar General of IT and tech support. But even then, the stuff they get called about, somebody will bring in a PC and be like, it's not working. They'll plug it in and be like, yeah, you didn't, the power switch, or, yeah, it happens. But
I had a friend who did that back in the 90s, and he said when home computers were starting to become a major market, and the amount of call-ins they would get from people complaining that the cup holder on it was crap. And they were talking about the CD-ROM tray.
I actually was really confused. I was almost a little sad. I finally bought a new PC after constantly refreshing and restoring and trying to maintain this 10-plus-year-old PC that was at my mom's house. That was like the family computer, but then I kind of took it over and just been upgrading it. And like, it was finally just like, I just need to buy a pre-built. I'm sick of this. I'm so sick of this. And I bought it. And then like, not until I got it home, I'm like, this doesn't have a disk drive. Why does that feel weird to me? Because I grew up with, CDs and video, you Command and Conquer, put the disk in.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, am I going to need it? And up until 3 months, still haven't needed it, like clearly not. But it was just weird to let that go when it was just, I don't know.
Yeah, you're so used to it.
Yeah. And you're like, it's changed, and you're like, I don't like this.
Yeah. That's the first time you're getting old, is when you suddenly don't like changing technology.
Yeah, you're like, boo, get away. Yeah. Like when iPhones got rid of any of the physical buttons and then got rid of the headphone jack, and everyone was like, how dare you? And then no one cares now. No one, if you have recorded anything, you're looked at weird. It's all Bluetooth now. So
right. Who cares? Yeah. Yeah, and the only reason,
remember that?
Yeah, and the only reason that threw me for a loop is I didn't know about it ahead of time when I upgraded my new iPhone, and I had always walked around with headphones in, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, time to go for a walk.
Where do I
headphones in? What the hell? Yeah.
But what it did is it drives change and innovation, right? Now companies, hey, you want to sell your headphones to Apple users, they better have Bluetooth.
Yeah.
They better have something better, and now Bluetooth is. I remember when I bought a Bluetooth dongle from Best Buy back in like 2008 and 2009, and it was an adapter about the size of a small USB battery pack. And all it did was you plugged it into a CD player or a Walkman, and it emitted a Bluetooth signal, so you could hook it up to something that received a Bluetooth signal. And
Yeah,
it was like
yeah,
$200,
yeah.
and it was useless because nothing received the Bluetooth signal. I'm like, what? Oh no, what have I
Right.
done? And now, like, if your wireless thing doesn't have Bluetooth, I mean, I can go get a Bluetooth gaming mic mouse from Five Below for $5 now. Like,
Yeah.
no one cares. It's cheap. It's cheap.
That was the thing. I remember got Bluetooth. I had a thing that you plugged into your cigarette lighter that had a radio tuner in it
Yeah.
that Bluetooth hooked
Why,
up.
FM
Yeah.
FM transmitter, Bluetooth
Yeah.
tuners.
Ran
Yeah,
one of
that
those,
was it.
and those were expensive back then.
They
That was
were.
like
They were.
2000.
Good ones were.
Yeah, I think it was like 2005, 2006. I bought one of those, and it was yeah, my girlfriend at the time got it for me as a Christmas gift, and I was like, oh my god, like, honey, this is too expensive just to be able to listen to music. And now it's like you can go buy a dinky little thing for $10 that does the exact same thing.
If I got into a car, if I bought a new car or something and got into it and drove away from the dealership and then it didn't have Bluetooth, I'd return the car. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, people would freak out. Like, what do you mean my Tesla can't connect to my? I have to plug it in? No, no. Hard pass.
It's your grandpa's
freak
car.
out.
It's your grandpa's car.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I'll get the cassette adapter.
I remember those. Yeah, and the CD player.
I do.
The CD Discman you'd have, and then every time you hit a bump, it'd skip over that part of the song.
No.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So hey, the other half of this that I definitely want to ask about, like, so you can do all the forums in the world, ask all these people on Instagram directly in their DM message, which the listeners out here, if you have questions, that's exactly what you do. You find one of these people and you DM them. They love that more than anything. But then there's the other side of it, like in terms of the finishing and painting. For you, was that learning process, was that a trial and error thing? Were there things that you learned from other people along the way, or how did that whole process evolve for you?
First, just to comment on one thing about DMing people on Instagram for help. Hold on, because I deal with it every day. When people approach me and they've done a little bit of the research and they come with a problem and they've already tried solutions, that speaks volumes. Like, hey man, I'm having this problem. I tried this. I'm at a loss. Thank you for trying. You know, that those are the ones that stand out. You're the real OGs. But for a painting, I won't sit here and say that anybody can do this. Everybody can do this. All you have to do is put in the time and effort. Yes, but I won't ignore that. I think I do have a better ineptitude for it than the average Joe. But I think it's because I have been doing it for so long. I grew up painting car models, and that evolved around the time of discovering anime. Gundam models were a huge part of my childhood. Customizing them, painting them, I loved it. It was therapeutic. It was just, I could sit back, unplug, just sit on the floor in my bedroom and build a Gundam model and add a little bit of paint. And then I discovered cars when I was 16, 17, and so me and my friends, we got our first really crappy cars, and we tried to customize them and paint the wheels and take out all the plastic inside and paint it all a cool color. So it was just this evolution of like customizing a hobby, and that's kind of what it was. And that's kind of what this whole hobby is too. It's like three different hobbies mixed in one, because there's people who love 3D printing and all they want to do is 3D print. They get the fastest printer, the best printer. That's great. But once it's printed, now you have a template to paint. It's a model, it's a piece of armor, it's a helmet, and that's a whole other side of it. That's the finishing and painting. And it's been tons of trial and error, tons and tons and tons. And that's the other half of the questions I think I get every day are, well, how'd you get that gold? Like, what'd you use to get that gold in the suit? Well, I used this I had to use this primer and had to sand it down. Then I had to use the gold, and I had to do this. However, you may not get those results. The temperature you paint in, the elevation you paint in, the humidity, how much did you sand? Did you do prep work? Did you get your greasy, grubby little fingerprints all over the piece before you painted it? Did you let it cure properly? Did you read the can? Do you have access to the same brand I do? Like, there's so many variables. I can't write you a painting guide. I never will. I never have. That's why in all like my painting tutorials, they're more of guides. because I'm kind of telling you what I did and what to look for, but never an ABC guide. I can't do it. I need lying to you. Like, no, first you're going to spray this, then you're going to wait 5 days. You know, that one person who had to wait 6 days now waited 5 and ruined their paint because they listened to me. I don't want to do that, you know? So it's trial and error and error and error and error. And then eventually you'll get it right and you'll learn so much of what not to do. It comes easy to you, you know? It's tricky. It's very complicated. Painting is complicated. Every time you change something up, I used to paint my Gundam models while I lived in Okinawa, Japan, in 100% humidity when it was like 100 degrees outside. And if you can get spray paint to cooperate on plastic, I deserve a medal for that. It was incredible. But it was again, it was patience. It was very late. It was just learning the right technique, and yeah, that helped a lot because then I got to a normal climate place, and it's like, oh, this is a joke. We're good. We're fine. So
yeah, that was one of the things that I get, and of course, having never done research on 3D printing ahead of time, and then all of a sudden, Christmas morning, I have a 3D printer in my lap, and I was so excited. I didn't even go anywhere. I literally plugged it into my kitchen table and went, here we go. You know, I wasn't prepared for how involved the finishing process is. You know, the first time, and I started off just, you know, I'm really into like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. So it's fun to like print out the miniatures, you know, that we use on the game app. But the first time you come out and then all of a sudden you're like,
you have a resin printer by now, right?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I have a friend who has those and is really into the resin and keeps telling me that's my next step.
Elegoo Mars Pro 2. It's like $200.
Yeah,
that's the next move.
That's on my that's gonna be on my list.
That's her.
I gotta do some stuff with the CR10 Max before I can convince my wife, like, hey, I need to spend more money on another printer right now.
That's fair. The Max is yeah.
It is.
Understand.
And so I feel like when you get into 3D printing, and I don't say this in a bad way, but I think you have to be prepared for a certain level of failure.
Absolutely.
Because that is definitely the way you're going to learn, you know.
Embrace. I try to say it every chance I get, every video. You're gonna F this up. You're gonna mess something up. You're gonna have a failed print. You're gonna drop it. I just had a sword fall off my wall and land on this helmet that I was almost done with. It cracked and fractured it, ruined the paint.
So I'm
gonna have to strip this whole thing down, and accidents happen. And
can you hold that up again? Let me see the front of that. That helmet is so badass. I saw that on your IG the other day.
I love it. God, I'm so proud. I am very proud of this helmet. I just ordered some red clear. It's clear red resin because the star I printed, it lights up. I'm just trying to go through different ways to get it to light up properly. But I think some clear resin that's like tinted red. That'll be it. Put some lights behind it. Yeah.
Okay. So do you use, this is an interesting question because actually, since you brought it up, I actually don't know a lot about resin printers. I thought resin printers would be great for like doing infinity stones or something like that. But visors, you do visors on those too?
You can do whole helmets on them if you want. The resins usually print clear unless they have a pigment in them. You can get white resins. Black resins usually look the coolest, honestly. It's just beautiful. I use a lot of gray resins, but you can get clear resin too. And if you print it the right way, kind of finish it and cure it just right, you can get them almost like glass. So luckily it doesn't need to be crystal clear for me because it's just gonna be a red. I just need to let some light through, almost like an opaque. But yeah, you can get pretty crazy with some resins, and it's all about just the layer lines are so much smaller and skinnier that they blend together. You can't tell that they're related because it does still have layer lines, just so much smaller, like ridiculously smaller.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Resin printing is awesome. I love explaining it to people because I think it's so much cooler than FDM plastic printing. It is such a cool technology, but it's so boring to watch.
Yeah.
It's just you like watching a normal plastic printer work, you're like, this is kind of cool. Like it's going around, it's making these noises, and yeah. But resin printing, you're just like, cool, it's I can only see half of it and it's in an enclosure, and this is boring. This is boring. I can't watch this. You don't know it failed. That's the worst part about resin printing. You don't know it failed until like at least 100 layers in, until it's out of the vat and you can see the print. Until then, you don't know if it failed or not. So a resin print, you either want it to come out perfect or you want it to fail on the very first layer. Because if it fails on the first layer, that first layer is now stuck to the LCD screen and it thinks it's continuing to print, but nothing comes out. And all you do is you lose just a thin layer of resin. Cool. Awesome. Whatever. I'd rather come back to a resin print and have nothing on the build plate rather than come out and it's like half broken hanging off. That's the worst feeling. It's because it's all wasted at that point. But if I open my garage door and like my resin printer plate's just blank, I'm like, that sucks, but not that bad. All right, whatever. Yeah, it's
yeah, that I didn't know that, and that now I definitely need to do more work into resin printers. I don't want to say a problem, but I've got a build that I'm working on. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do the next step, but it sounds like a resin printer might just handle that whole thing. I don't know. Are you familiar or a fan of the Halo games at all?
I am not a Halo fan. I'm familiar enough with some of their armors and some of the terminology to it.
Okay. All right. So this is Master Chief helmet build I'm working on. The problem that I was trying to solve is, I'll make sure I get it in camera, is the visor, because the weird thing about the visor, I actually have it on my desk because I keep it here. This is from the collector's edition of Halo 3. And if you look at the visor, see how it's got that like 2-tier to it?
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how to do that. And originally I was just going to take my like plexiglass and, try to do the window tint, but I have the file, like the file for the actual thing. But if I were to resin print that'd probably come out.
You would need a fairly large resin printer to do that in one shot though.
Mm-hmm.
It's very tricky. How people use vacuum formers, but when it comes to things like visors, I always found that Etsy is usually a good place for those really, really unique ones, like those really special, because sometimes you don't need to make everything. And if you're going for that best possible finish, you can do the helmet, you can do the paint, you can do the weathering. But if it's like somebody has a specialty in making just the visors for it, I'll capitalize on that.
Oh, okay.
There are tons there because there are tons of people who sell, and you can get them in different scales and sizes. You just have to like talk to them and give them measurements, and they can make them in different sizes already with all the cool creases and lines, the perfect fit, already tinted in the gold or whatever color you want. Multiple different colors. They have reds, golds, blues. Food for thought.
Yeah.
If you want to go the 100% handmade route, the whole helmet. I've done that too. It's just it's getting those shapes and lines is very tricky.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and especially something like that, because that's not something that I think I would ever want to like manufacture for sale.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's hard. What I'll usually recommend people is, if you make your own visor, whatever you do, make it removable. Like all of the visor on my Samus helmets, the visor on my Hellbat helmets, and my Mandalorian, I can take all of those visors out in case they ever get damaged, or I want to upgrade them, or I find a better way. This way you're not locked into that and need to chisel it out or something.
Right, for sure. So I'm totally like segueing here. Are you playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now?
No, because that came out a few years ago.
No, oh, come on.
You mean Horizon Forbidden West?
Yeah, Forbidden
game
West.
I have the nice bow in the background of.
Yes.
That I was playing right before this podcast. Yes.
Although I got
amazing.
I have it on really good authority though that you did not make that bow, but you bought it because you can't do that on a 3D printer. That's what somebody on Instagram said, right?
It's a skin. It's a bow skin. That was my favorite comment on YouTube.
Yes.
Somebody was like, "Oh, so it's a bow skin," and I'm like, "Yeah, actually, you're right. I made a bow skin. That's a funny way to put it." Yes, I unlocked the bow, and then you had to get the special upgrade for the Aloy skin.
Yeah, just collect enough machine parts for it.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a fun build.
Was it YouTube? There was one guy who just like lost his mind over that you can't get 3D prints in different colors like that unless you're believe he called it the film.
Oh,
yeah.
No, that was it was one of the other videos. It's usually my you're wrong about 3D printing video, or it was one of my YouTube shorts. That's where that comment, the one I shared on Instagram. Yeah, that cracked me up. And I'll take it as a compliment. If you're really sitting there thinking I bought all this stuff, thanks, man. If
Yeah.
you look a little hard, you'll be able to tell that I didn't buy this stuff, and it's not perfect. No. But yeah, that was funny. That was yeah, the inks can't do this. He'd have to swap it out. He bought that stuff.
Yeah.
And my wife had an idea. She was like, you should take that comment and respond to it on TikTok, like block out his name or something, even though it's a public comment and it's his fault. But like, I wanted to make a video, like a real serious video. Like, I'm really sorry, guys. Like, I've been lying to you. Someone on YouTube finally called me out on it. I'm a sham. I actually bought all this stuff online, this Etsy shop. And then I'm here, I'll buy a helmet right now just to show you. And I was going to go and like do a couple clicks on the computer, but then I was going to pop into the room, be like, hey, Frank, we got a new order on your Etsy. Like it's me ordering for myself, you know, like, oh yeah, I'll be right there. You know,
She's got a great idea. I like that one.
she was like, you could literally plug your Etsy shop in a video like that. Like, shit, you're right. Actually, that may be kind of funny.
Best advertising in the world. Yeah, for sure.
But my Etsy shop is a barren wasteland right now, so it's really not the time to do it. I have like a few arc reactors and a Nova helmet print for sale. I have been neglecting my Etsy is like my 7th priority, and a lot of people seem to think it's my number 1 priority. It's not. If my Etsy's empty, it'll be empty until I restock it. That's how that works. Like, you know, like
right.
I have sponsorships, YouTube, TikTok. Like there's a lot more going on. Etsy was just like an extra break glass in case of emergency source of income, or a way to, you know, maybe I want to make 2 Samus helmets because I want to experiment with some paints, and maybe I'll keep the nicer one, but the second one is still pretty nice. I don't need it. I'll sell it, you know, and it funds everything else. So
for sure.
that's what Etsy is for.
Yeah. Speaking of priorities, your YouTube channel is amazing. It is so much fun. I love it so much. I was having this thing, I'm not going to get into the long story of it, but I was having this thing where I had gotten to the point with my Adventure Pro. I was starting to get frustrated, you know, and I had managed to hammer out a lot of the issues. And I don't remember where it was Instagram or TikTok or something. I was scrolling through and somebody was showing off this 3D printed Mandalorian helmet that they had. I'm a huge fan of the show. So I'm like, man, that's 3D printed. I could never do that on my Adventure Pro. I mean, you could, but you'd have to do it in such small tiles, you know? So I literally just sat down on YouTube, typed in 3D printed Mandalorian helmet, and your video was the first one that came up. And then it got to the point where I spent like, I don't know, like how many weeks just like down like the rabbit hole on your channel, like watching all the live streams, and because of that is why I bought both my new printers now beyond the Adventure Pro. What made you decide to want to begin to make the videos and put them up on YouTube?
Well, it's hard to find now because I privated the video, which means it's actually impossible to find now unless you're me. My YouTube started out as a car channel. So that's why my YouTube was there. It was a car channel for me working on my British owned Hyundai coupe thing that I had. And it was I've always been into Hyundais, judge if you want, whoever you are. But I grew up with them. I liked my cars and stuff. And there wasn't a lot of aftermarket for them and not a lot of aftermarket support. So I started on some of the forums, like for the cars, teaching people how to do the basic stuff, you know, take apart the interiors, pull out your seats, upgrade your headlights, do exhaust systems like that. And then I started making YouTube videos on it because it was just easier to explain, like, hey, let me show you how to do this. And that's where the channel really was. I think I had like 7 or 8 car videos on it. And then I got the 3D printer, and it should be chronologically, if you sort by oldest, it should be my first video now. And I got my first 3D printer, and it's me in that first little white room in England. I opened my CR10S and I was just like, I'm gonna upload the video for it. And that was the start of it. I'm like, yeah, it'd be fun to share. But then I started sharing the plans for the Iron Man suit. Like, hey guys, this is what I want to do. It was the first Mark 85 update video. And like, hey, I want to do this. I want to document this because I think it'll help some people who also might want to do this. We'll see. And it really started to resonate with people. And then people ask questions. Hey, I saw you how'd you get the helmet to do that? What paint are you using? So I'd make a follow-up video. This is how I did the helmet. This is how I did the paint. Oh, how'd you do that other thing? So it was just this give and take feedback loop of what are people looking for? Can I do it? Can I teach it? And that's never gone away, you know? And I'll be honest, I didn't have too much of an interest in making a Mandalorian helmet. So it was a little bit of a pop culture-y. People seem interested in this. It's all right. Let's make a Mandalorian helmet. You know, let's learn something new. Let's learn how to get that really nice metallic finish. You know, and I ended up really enjoying it, and I really liked the helmet when it was done. So I'm like, this is kind of cool because a lot of people in the hobby were asking for it too. It's like if I can satiate my need to build something and also answer a question, why not kill two birds with one stone? And then I posted a picture of my suit on it was when it was all painted white. It was all just primer white, and it was on the armor stand, all janky, standing in the corner of my room. I posted that on Reddit, and that blew up like that. That was like the catalyst of like, oh man, people are really want to know more about this. So started doing it.
And there it is.
That was it.
Well, I in my own personal pages, I've been posting the last several weeks, different things that I'm printing, stuff that I'm working on. I've gotten to the point where I've had enough people in my personal life asking me, who are now getting interested in 3D printing. They're like, hey, how'd you do that, man? Every single time cool. I straight up direct them to your YouTube channel. Like I will just send the link because it's great, because there's videos on there like, how do you get into 3D printing? You know, maintenance things, setting up. I mean, down to like the 3D building 101 all the way up to you're building an Iron Man armor, you're making a Stormbreaker, you're, you know, doing all these crazy things.
I wish I could go back and update a lot of videos, and eventually I want to, but I mean, if you go back to some of my old videos, you can definitely see an increase in production quality. The astronomical increase. I still have the original GoPro Hero 3 Silver I started with. Like it's still, I know where it is, and now we're here.
Yeah.
Definitely not on a GoPro.
Well, that's you know, that's the way these things go. I think like my first 5 episodes of my podcast I did were just with a friend sitting at my kitchen table, and there was no video. The audio was crap. You could hear my dogs and sometimes my kids in the background, you know. Yeah, and then once it kind of becomes a thing, you're like, you know, I need to invest in this. I need to like build the background, you know, so that it's not just, you know, because when I first started doing it video, which was when the pandemic happened, then it's like, oh, I can't exactly like have people into my house, and I want to, you know, have more people on the podcast than just live in my teeny little town in Illinois here. Yeah, and I think like the first couple of videos that I have are on YouTube are like, it's just like the maroon background of like my kitchen wall, and yep, you put the production quality into it. I mean, your backdrop right now is just like absolutely mind blowing. I mean, that's just like, first of all, the cool stuff, the FB that all lights up and changes colors. I mean, that is off the charts, man.
Thank you.
Did you how was it? Because you moved. How was that process like, moving all that stuff and all those printers across the ocean? Your eyes just got huge, so I'm assuming that it was a logistical challenge.
Well, just packing, that was it, because the military paid for the move, which is great. That would have been we did the math. We got a quote. It would have been like a $35,000 move with all the, because it goes by weight, it goes by all of that, and we had like 9,000 or 10,000 pounds worth of household stuff, furniture, you know, furniture, clothes, grill, patio furniture, all my printers, all this stuff. Packing the printers was easy. You just had to take the printers apart, put them back in the boxes, which I saved, because when you live over military, you're going to be moving again, so you know that. So I was like, I got to save these boxes. I have to. It's a different lifestyle, you know. As for the props, I shipped my suit myself. I boxed my suit up into 3 different boxes and shipped them. I paid to ship them. It was $150 total. I shipped them here because my wife came back to the US 2 months early to start setting up our house. Like we could house hunt. She could go sign, you know, closing, bought the house. So she was here for a month before I even got here. And so I shipped the suit to her. It only took a little bit of damage, only like 2 parts broke, which I was very surprised about. Um, as for all the other props, the helmets were easy enough to pack up. But it was like the long swords, like the 6-foot swords. I had to make a custom crate for all of them, like, and piled them all together. And I think the only thing that broke, something broke. What broke? You survived? One of my keyblades broke, but it was still being built anyway, so I didn't really care about that. And then my Loki's scepter broke, but it was constantly breaking anyway, so I didn't really care. Aside from that, nothing, everything else survived. I did a good enough job packing everything where it wasn't that bad.
Oh man, that's good. And like my heart would be in my throat. That'd be like packing a child up.
What was the bad part of it was I knew my stuff was going to sit on a boat and a truck, and it was going to sit in these warehouses and shipping containers for we shipped our stuff. The stuff in England left my house the end of April 2021. It didn't get delivered here to this house till the end of August.
Ooh.
So that's a lot of sitting around, potentially in heat, potentially. But luckily, nothing warped. Nothing was. Oh, I did. I had 2 or 3 raw printed helmets warp. Like, like a Mandalorian helmet warped a little bit, and one of my Power Rangers helmets warped. But then again, they were raw prints. So in my nice finished helmets, I had these all packaged up individually, like really wrapped, so there wasn't any tension or pressure on them. All of my raw printed helmets, I kind of just threw in a big box together, so they each had their own. It was all just getting crushed with weight because I didn't care about the paint scratching. There was no paint yet, so I think that's why they warped. They were just at that right temperature where they wouldn't have warped if they didn't have other forces applied to them.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild stuff.
Never want to do it again. That's why. That's why I'm getting out of the military. We're sick of moving. We really are. After this move, when we left New Jersey and moved to Japan, we really didn't have much at all. We had like some pieces of furniture and our clothes. Then when we moved from Japan to England, we had more stuff, but it wasn't that bad because it was a small place in Japan. But then moving from England to here, we had a 4-bedroom house in England, and like we had a lot of stuff, and packing it all up and uprooting again and moving here, and like our house still isn't fully put together, and it's almost been a year. Like, just like we're still selling stuff we don't need anymore, and like I don't want to do it again. I'm sick of it. I did it for 10 years, just dealt with it living overseas, and I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all right.
Well, you just do that thing. Like the older you get, the more stuff you accumulate. Like my wife and I moved into this house 12 years ago, and we're like, never again. I don't ever want to have to move again, unless it's something where I can like pay buco bucks for a moving company to come and pick everything up and take it to the next house. And yeah, when you got that much stuff, I'm surprised that like it wasn't cheaper for the military just to be like, you know what, we're just going to land a C-130 for all your crap. Pack it all in and fly it over there.
The movers, the guys leave. Both the guys who packed the house, the British dudes in England, they were really cool. Like they asked a couple questions about the printers, and they were like, "Yeah, this is sweet." And then the guys unpacking the like unloading the trucks and bringing stuff in, and we're like, "What are all these boxes?" I'm like, "No, they're 3D printers." So like, it always like activates a conversation. It's always just like, "What do you mean?" You know?
Yeah.
What are those? Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting field, and it's cool now because I feel like the last several years it's really exploded in popularity so much.
Oh yeah. I mean, pop culture alone, when people found it's like a rite of passage now. You buy a 3D printer and you print an Iron Man helmet, you know, like you kind of have to.
That's the way you get your official nerd card now. Not until you've done that, even if that's the only thing you do. That's what you did. Well, cool. Well, hey man, we're getting up against the clock here. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. And no
problem. Thank you for having me. I love getting reached out about these things because it's fun. It's fun talking about this stuff, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I absolutely guarantee you, keep producing the stuff, and everybody will keep watching 100% because it is so much fun.
I hope so. I hope so.
You know, as a side note, I wasn't aware, and maybe I was just ignorant, because prior to like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I started following you on Instagram, and I never followed anybody prior to that who does 3D printing. And now it's like it just explodes. Like I'm following Kira's Workshop, and is it CTK Creations?
Danny,
you
yep,
know,
yep.
and
I
then
love all of it. Oh, Kiara, she's a sweetheart. Danny is awesome. He's like one of my best friends now. Emily, dude, she's a saint. Like they're such good people.
and you guys, none of you guys met like in real life prior to the 3D printing shtick, right? Like that
Not at
was
all.
all.
Oh god, nope. Nope. We're and outside of that, we're all pretty different people. I mean, we're all kind of nerds, but like Emily's literally she was working at Bosch, like the car supply kind of plate. Like she's an engineer who was like interning there. Kiara is going to school for film and like industry and stuff, and Danny's also getting something in like this graphic design. Like, no, I would have never been. One's in California. I don't know. I think Kiara lives in Chicago or Illinois somewhere. And Emily lives in South Carolina, like near Clemson or something. Like we would have never met, ever.
We're lucky to live in this time, where things like this are possible.
And I met them when I lived in England. Like,
yeah,
we became friends when I was still living in England. And it's just I happened to move to the East Coast where like Emily's within driving distance. Like she's only she's like 5 hours away. But still, she's come and visited. Like we hung out. And we wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for nerds and Iron Man and pop culture and Disney and Marvel capitalizing on our nostalgia, raking billions of dollars a year.
That is so true. So folks out there who are watching and or listening, Frankly Built, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You have a Discord too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Discord.gg/Frankly Built. We have our own vanity URL because that Discord got out of hand very quickly. It's a good place. And it's free 99.
Yeah, you got to love that. So that's we're going to call this one a wrap, folks. Once again, Frank, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on. And
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll all definitely keep following you.
I appreciate that, sir.
All right, thank you so much. All right, everyone. So that was the podcast with Frankly Built. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed talking to him. That was a whole lot of fun. I hope I get to talk to him again in the future. I want to thank everybody for liking, subscribing, sharing, all that good stuff. And if you could do me a favor and continue to do that, that's what helps a podcast like this grow. But before I get out of here, I just want to say I love all of you. Hope you take care of each other, and we'll talk to you next time.